Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Marte, I come from Norway and I love makeup, and I'm so excited for this video because yesterday I got a package and it was from Kaleidos Makeup, who so kindly sent me a PR package with the Club Nebula palette made by Kaleidos Makeup and Angelica Nyqvist. So I'm so happy to have this because she was basically the reason why I got into indie makeup and single shadows, which is like a passion of mine now, so I'm so grateful for that. And I knew I had to have this palette when it came out, and I'm so happy that I got it in PR. This is how it looks on the inside. It's absolutely stunning. It has some really gorgeous shimmers and mattes, and for this video I decided to do some eye swatches for you guys so you can see how each and every one of these shadows apply on the eye and how they look, and hopefully you will be able to see the shifts in the shadows. I also decided to do some swatch comparisons with their other palettes, so I will leave some timestamps up here so you can see when the swatches are for the eyes and when I start with the comparisons, so you can like check out whatever you want to check out in this video. I will also be doing two looks with this palette, and the first one is the one I'm wearing right here, so I will be making a two looks one palette that I will be posting later this week hopefully. And make sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell if you want to see that. But now let's just go on to the swatches because this is going to be a very long video. For these eye swatches I will be using my glam glue from Glam Shop. So here you can also see the ingredients. You can just pause if you want to see what kind of ingredients are in it. As for the brushes I'll be using their S3 brush right here. It's the big fluffy brush. It's a little bit tapered, so I really like this one for applying mattes. And for the shimmers I'll be using this one. And as a base for the mattes I will of course not be using the glam glue, but I will be using the Kaleidos Makeup Tone Activator for the mattes, because what better primer to use for the mattes than their own primer. Now I have the glam glue on my right eye here, and I'm just going to start by applying this shade. As for the rest of my makeup, I only added some concealer and some tinted brow gel to make it look a little bit more finished, so you can get a better idea of how it will actually look. But other than that, I don't have anything on. So that is the application with only a brush. So I'm going to just take a little bit on my finger and try to tap it in, because that often makes it a little bit more foiled and opaque in my opinion. So I just wanted to try to do that, and I do feel like it gets a little bit more intense by doing this. But obviously this shade would look so gorgeous if you have another shade underneath, a deeper base, because then you will see the shifts better. I did change my settings on the camera, so here you have my phone with the flash. I will do this on all of the shimmers so you can really see the shifts. This is usually how I take my photos as well. And yeah, you can really see the pink shift in this gorgeous light minty green shadow. I really like it. It's also very sparkly, as you can see. So now I'm going into the shade 7 of 9 with my S3 brush. I did pack on quite a lot on the brush, so as you can see I do also have some fallout underneath here. Nothing crazy. And I'm just going to first tap it on my lid, and then I'm going to slightly blend the edges just so you can like see how opaque it gets on the lid, and if you are able to like use it only as a matte in a look. And this far I must say I'm really impressed. It blends so effortlessly. It's super pigmented. So here we have the shade 7 of 9. I feel like it is getting a tiny bit darker in the crease, but I don't even know if you can see that or if it's just me. To even get the blend even nicer, I would have used like a setting powder or a white powder to just make sure I set the base that I have on, because it's a little bit tacky. But it looks really good this far. So yeah, that is 7 of 9 and Firefly. So now it's time for the shade Gravity, which is the gorgeous lime shade. It's feeling quite soft in the pan. I'm really excited to see how this one applies. Making sure that my primer isn't creasing, of course. And then I'm starting to pack it on. Something like this. I feel like this shade also applied beautifully. It's very opaque. I don't really see much patchiness, which you often get with shades like this. And yeah, I really like it. It blended nicely. I think this is a great lime green. I will say it's maybe a little bit darker than I thought, and I personally don't see much of that shimmer that I have seen in the shadow, but that might be different on a different base or if you have different texture on your eyelids, but personally I really like this one. Now it's the shade Queen of Blades. It's one of my favorites one in the palette. It's just like this beautiful blue with a very green base, and it's very dark, which I love. Okay, so I will say this is a super dark shade, so I wouldn't normally expect it to be blending out by itself, but I'm just going to add some setting powder here so I can see if it will, because that would be a really big plus if you can actually use a deep matte by itself. So personally, I feel like this blended great. I feel like I could definitely just do this, lashes, all the makeup on and finished. It's beautiful. I really like the shade. It's so deep and it also blends out nicely. So now it's time for the shade Void. It is very pigmented when picking it up on the brush, I feel like. I do have quite a bit of fallout with it, but I mean, that is to be expected. I will do the same with this one as I did with the previous one. I will be adding some setting powder on my brow bone just to see how this one blends out by itself. Okay, so this is the result after some quick blending, and again, I'm super impressed. Like, I feel like this blends out really beautifully alone. It does have quite a bit of fallout, as you can see, but for me that's never really an issue because I always do my eyes first because I use sparkly shadows and pigments, so I do have fallout anyway. But this is the gorgeous shade Void, and I think it looks beautiful. Just so pigmented, so saturated and deep. So now it's the shade You're My Only Hope. I think it's the most sparkly shadow in the palette. It's not super like duochrome, it feels like. It has like a slight blue icy shift maybe. But this one could be gorgeous as a topper, especially like if you just top it over some deep mattes, you can really transform this shadow, I feel like. So that is the shadow just quickly with a brush, and then I'm using my finger. It's the same finger that I applied the glitter glue with, so you can really see that this intensified the shadow. So now I'm just trying to give you an idea of how it looks like with the flash. You can really see those gorgeous sparkles. It's a little bit dark, but yeah, you can't really see too much of a shift. At least I can't. I don't know what you can see. But it's a very beautiful shadow. Now it's time for the shade Naru. And this seems to be like a taupe beige shade, but it has like quite a lot of purple undertone, I feel like. It's a very cool tone, that's for sure. So I'm wondering if this one could like mute down any of the colorful deeper mattes, for example, or just be used for a very like everyday look. So yeah, I will say that this is not like your regular beige shade, but it's very pretty. I feel like this one would go really great together with the shade Rock Hopper, which is the more muted deep purple, but I don't really think I have much more to say about this shade. It performed great, just as you would expect with a shade like this. Now it's time for the shade Astro. I think this one is maybe the one people are most excited about because I think it's described as a multi-chrome. Personally, I haven't really seen much of the teal shift when I've done my finger swatches, so I'm excited to see if I will be able to see that shift on the eye. But it does apply really smoothly, and it's certainly super sparkly, and I have seen the purple shift in this one. So I think this is how I will end it with a brush, so we will see how it changes when I use the finger to like foil it and make it more opaque. Definitely a very textured and beautiful shadow. And here we will see how it looks with the flash. Again, I can really see the purple, but I don't really see the teal. I don't know if you can see that, but it's definitely a very beautiful shadow. Like, it's super sparkly, and you can definitely see that purple. Now I'm ready to apply Rock Hopper, which is the more deeper purple but super cool toned. It's almost a gray. Wow. Okay, that color looks so much better when you apply it, I feel like, than when you like look at it in the pan. That is a lot deeper than I expected. And it's really beautiful. Now again, I'm just setting. I used a little bit much. But I am like noticing that it looks like it's deepening up a little bit, just like where my cut crease would usually go, right here. But like that is not like too bad. It's just that if you only want to use this shade, it might look a little bit funny. So yeah, this one I probably wouldn't have used just blended by itself, because you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but at least for me it's very visible that right here I have like a darker, I wouldn't even say patch, it's just a lot darker there. Maybe it's because the primer is a little bit too wet for this kind of shade. But I would definitely use something on the lid when using this, and I'd probably blend it out with the shade Nori, because I think that one would fit really nicely since it has like a purplish undertone as well. But that is the shade Rock Hopper. Also a lot of fallout. Now I'm going in with the shade Cylon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it looks like a little bit more vibrant and warm shade than the other one I have on here, Rock Hopper. So here you can definitely see patchiness. I don't know like how much you can actually see of that, but for me it's very obvious that you have a very black line here, and then you have like this patch in the middle of the eye. I don't know if it's like just because I have hooded eyes, but to me that is very like I would not use this shade alone, that's for sure. Now I'm just adding some setting powder so I can see how it blends when it's not super wet where you want to blend it. Like I will say with both of these, they blend really beautifully, but you do get that deep patch, or like the deep line and the patch in the middle. So I would definitely, like I could use this as the only matte, but I would definitely need something to cover up the lid. I could do a cut crease, or I can just do a faux cut crease by adding a shimmer on top. But as you can see, like the blend itself, it's really beautiful. You don't have that weird patchiness that you often get with deep darker mattes where you have like small dots. At least I can't see it. I don't know how well you can see it. I'm like really close up now, so hopefully we can see that better in the finished video. But yeah, I really like these colors, and as you can see, it looks beautiful when you have your eyes open like you regularly would. So with a shimmer, these would do fantastic. So now I'm going in with the shade Celestial. This one is actually super similar to the shade Pink Ginger from the Sashimi City palette that they have. I think I'll just do a whole lot of comparison at the end of this video if it's not too long. So that is how Celestial looks alone, without anything, and just using a brush. So here you can see I'm just making sure I make it more opaque with my finger, and you can definitely not see that much through it now. And it's a really beautiful shade with a very strong pink shift. So here you can see it with the flash and the lighting turned down a little bit. It's a very beautiful shade, and I feel like you can use this one with definitely like the corally matte and the red, but also even the purples. Now I'll apply the shade Nova, which is a white iridescent, but it has a very strong blue to fuchsia shift, and it's very, very shifty. At least I felt like it was super shifty from my finger swatches. So this is how it looks just with the brush, and then I'm going to really buff it in with my finger. So that is how this one is looking. I was so surprised at this because it's so intense. So here I'm hoping that you can see that a little bit better. It's a super sparkly shade. This one will be like so beautiful for the inner corner, and it will really fit all the other colors here because it's both pink and blue, which is, yeah, matching the different mattes you have here. But here you can see the pink shift so good. Now I'm using the shade, I don't know how to pronounce it, Samus, and it's like a super bright but relatively light peachy orange. At least on me, that's how it's going to transfer because I'm very pale, but it's a very gorgeous shade. As you can see, it applies beautifully, super pigmented, seems to be blending quite good. Do have some fallout, but the shade seems to like be blending itself. So I really like this one. I'm actually going to use this for one of my looks. So that is the shade Famous. Okay, so now it's time for the shade Nebula. My eye is starting to swell up because this is like, it has some alcohol in it, the glue I'm using, and it stinks like crazy when I put it on now because I've been putting on and removing my makeup so many times. But luckily this is the last one that I have to use that for. This one is really surprising to me because it has like a super strong hot pink shift. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to get it as opaque as it looks on my finger swatch. So now I'm just using my finger to try to get that intensity going. So here we have the shade Nebula. As you can see, it has that a really orangey gold shift. And then you can really see the hot pink on the inner corner there. That's basically where the light's hitting. Last shade in the palette is the shade Red Giant. And it's like a slightly deep red shade, which I personally really like, that it's not just a standard red. As you can see, on me at least, it looks very deep. So I thought this was going to be quite bright because it kind of looked like it in Angelica's video, but obviously she has a little bit of a deeper skin tone than me, so on me this one will look, oh, it's almost like the perfect burgundy that I've been wanting. This is making me so excited. I was kind of expecting this one to have that deeper dark line that the other purples or warm toned mattes had, but this far I'm only seeing like the tiniest bit of that. So, and also it blended so easily, so I don't even think I'll have to put on setting powder to show how good it can blend. So that means that it's blending really nicely. So I'm super excited about this matte actually, because I didn't see it like, or I had like a suspicion that it might be that perfect deep burgundy red that I've been looking for, but this is kind of confirming my thoughts about that. So, but that was the last swatch, thank God. So those were all of the eye swatches. I really hope that they were helpful if you were considering to get this palette and needed to see them a bit more up close and see what kind of shifts they had. Now let's move on to the second part of this video. I really want to compare some of the shadows from the Club Nebula palette with some of the shadows from the other palettes that Kaleidos Makeup have. So I'm just going to hold all of the different palettes up next to the Club Nebula palette and we will just see what kind of shadows are similar. Okay, that was easier said than done, but here we have the Sashimi City palette next to the Club Nebula palette, and personally I just found the only shadow that I find similar enough to compare is the Celestial with the pink ginger shadow. I'm just gonna do it like this. This is the pink ginger shadow that I wanted to compare, and the Celestial shadow is the one in the bottom right here. So you can maybe see which is which, because the Celestial shade is the one I have here, and it's a little bit lighter, but like I feel like these have the same shift, but pink ginger is more like warm gold, whereas Celestial, I can just swatch them. So Celestial is a little bit lighter, and pink ginger has a more like deeper base. You can see that here. So they are different, but you will have quite a similar look, especially if you use a deeper colored base. So I just really wanted to show you guys that. Then we have these two, which are a little bit similar, so I will swatch those to you. As you can see swatched out, they're very different. This one is Nori from the Club Nebula palette. Then we have this one from the Lunar Lavender palette, which is called Crater Grove, and it's way more warm. This one, Sci-Fi Green, there's no similarities whatsoever. I'm not going to open it because I ruined my black one with a magnet, so it's only going to be a mess. Then we have the VR Neon palette that I really wanted to compare. I did want to compare the greens from the VR Neon palette with the one in the Club Nebula palette. As you can see, there's like not really a point to compare the red, but at least you can see them next to each other to see that there is a big difference in the depth of the shadows. Then again we have here the Club Nebula on my pointing finger, and then we have the VR Neon one here on the middle finger. So I'll swatch Club Nebula here, and then the one from the VR Neon palette here. So they are very similar, but you can see that the neon one, of course, is a little bit more neon. I doubt that these will make too much of a difference on the eye though. Then we have the Astro Pink palette. I think I will compare the lavender ones just so you can see the difference. Oh, I really suck at this. The lavender that you can see from Club Nebula in the back together with this lavender. I think you will be able to see the berries here, that the one in the Club Nebula palette is way deeper, so I won't swatch those, but I will swatch the blue duo / multi-chromes. So here you have You're My Only Hope on my my pointy finger, and my middle finger is the shade, I think it's called Light Year from the Astro Pink palette. They look very similar on my finger now, but I do think they look quite different once I swatch them. So we have the Club Nebula one here. It's more of like an iridescent, more like shiny shade, whereas this one is a true metallic. Yeah, here you can definitely see the difference. It has such a strong base. Oh, these ones would make such a good look together. Then we have Astro here from the Club Nebula palette versus Nebula from Astro Pink. So it is a little bit funny because this one is called Nebula, which is the same name as the orange to pink shimmer in the Club Nebula. So you would kind of expect a brand to not have two shades that have the same name. But I'm going to swatch the Club Nebula one here and the Astro Pink one here. So you can see that they're definitely different. The Club Nebula one is way lighter, it's more shiny, and I think they're equally sparkly though. And you can't really see the shift in this lighting right here, but they both shift purple. And here we have the second to last palette that I have. As you can see, there are no like straight up dupes here. I will, however, I think I will just swatch the turquoises so you can see the difference in those. When you look at the teals, it's like the one in the Club Nebula palette is a lot deeper, I feel like. So again, we have Club Nebula on my pointer finger and Electro-Turquoise on the other. I'm not even going to swatch these out because you can definitely see the difference. The Electro-Turquoise is way lighter, and I mean, just since I had it here, I did swatch the darker teal as well. So this one is Club Nebula and this is Electro-Turquoise. So I do really feel that they have a lot more deeper mattes in the Club Nebula palette. Okay, so this is like an awkward position, but here we have the escape pod next to the Club Nebula palette. So the ones that I want to compare are it's the beige here to the shade Naru, and the greens are obviously very different. I guess I could swatch this one with Celestial. Okay, so my other fingers are very stained from the teals. So this is Naru from the Club Nebula palette, and this one is Bossa Nova from the Escape Pod. And as you can see, the Celestial shade here on my pinky finger is very different from the Starlight Sonata shade from the Escape Pod. Okay, so that was the comparisons as well. This ended up being a really long video, so I'm sorry if it's way too long, but hopefully it was helpful for you guys, and I hope that you liked it. If you did, then please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me, if you want to see the looks that I'm making with the Club Nebula palette. This is one of them that I'm wearing right here. But thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!